So what you're going to watch is from the live stream we did just as the news went live that Intel's CEO Pat Gelsinger has officially retired. It's been a few hours since the announcement now, and overall, my thoughts are this: in retrospect, seems a very immediate announcement, a very aggressive announcement. Lots of people circulating on the internet, either in one way, strongly one way, or the other, saying this is a bad idea. Without Pat, the vision won't be resumed. And on the other side, people saying that the reason why Pat's been removed is because Intel is in the way it is right now, especially from a product's perspective. Bloomberg has put out that this has been effectively a push, not agreeing with the way Pat's vision has come together in terms of timing, in terms of cost. And there's still a lot more to do. There's a lot of people speculating on who's going to take over. I'm not going to include that in this video. If you want to see the full 30-40 minute discussion about who may take over, I'll leave you to go over to the live stream version. Link will be in the description to do that. But yeah, please put your comments down below about what you think about this news. There's a very vocal group online about this. I will say one thing that won't be in this video, but we did do on a live stream. We did do a poll as to how do you think Pat has handled his time at Intel? And the options were plus, 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 minus, and minus, minus. And it was a 60% positive versus 40% negative, with most people saying plus. So there is that. That leaves a lot of question marks on the table. A few of the employees have reached out and said they didn't know this was coming. So some of them are saying morale's a bit low. But I'll let you be the judge of the news with the rest of this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the end. I should also point out that I did interview Pat back in February 2024 as part of their Intel Foundry event. I'll put a link in the description and in the comments if you want to go watch that. That's 20 minutes of me and him talking about where Intel has to be in terms of Foundry. And as you go through the rest of the video, you'll see perhaps why the distinction between products and Foundry has been pretty important for the board. What's your minimum specification? I'm going to be a bit pixelated and a bit wavy, but hopefully my audio is coming through fine. Yeah, so if you hadn't already seen by the title of the video or the thumbnail, a shock announcement this morning that Pat Gelsinger, Intel of CEO, has officially, effective immediately, retired. Not only that, he is also giving up his seat on the board of directors, which is pretty important. And this has created a cavalcade of questions and non-answers, and kind of wanted just because it's breaking news, let's get on stream, let's discuss it, let's see what's going on. I literally have my lunch here, by the way. This is how breaking news it is. I haven't touched a mouthful yet, because this is really important, though I may drink from coffee. Let's get straight into what exactly we do know. And what we do know is this. This is the official press release from Intel announcing Pat Gelsinger's retirement. And there's a few words in here, but I want to go through just so we all know we're on the same page. And Intel announces retirement of CEO Pat Gelsinger. David Zinsner and Michelle Johnston-Holthaus named interim co-CEOs. Holthaus also appointed to the newly created position of CEO of Intel Products. Frank Yeary named interim executive chair. So this was on the wire at 8:30 Eastern. So what's that? Just over an hour ago at this point. Yeah, Intel today announced that CEO Pat Gelsinger retired from the company after a distinguished 40-plus year career and a step down from the board of directors effective yesterday, or end of day yesterday. However, it only went live 8:30 at the start of markets opening today, also because it's Monday. So Intel has named two senior leaders, David Zinsner and Michelle Johnston-Holthaus, as interim co-chief executive officers, while the board of directors conducts a search for a new CEO. We'll speak about these appointments in a second. I just want to go through the text here. Zinsner is Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, and House has been appointed to the newly created position of CEO of Intel Products, a group that encompasses the company's client computing group, CCG, data center and AI group, DCAI, and network and edge group, NEX. Frank Yeary, independent chair of the board of Intel, will become interim executive chair during a period of transition. Intel Foundry leadership structure remains unchanged. The board has formed a search committee and will work diligently and expeditiously to find a permanent successor to Gelsinger. Yeary said, "On behalf of the board, I want to thank Pat for his many years of service and dedication to Intel across a long career in technology leadership. Pat spent his formative years at Intel, then returned at a critical time for the company in 2021. As a leader, Pat helped launch and revitalize process manufacturing by investing in state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing while working tirelessly to drive innovation throughout the company." Yuri continued, "While we have made significant progress in regaining manufacturing competitiveness and building the capabilities to be a world-class foundry, we know that we have much more work to do at the company and are committed to restoring investor confidence. As a board, we know first and foremost that we must put our product group at the center of all we do. Our customers demand this from us, and we will deliver for them. With MJ's permanent elevation to CEO of Intel Products, along with her interim co-CEO role of Intel, we are ensuring the product group will have the resources needed to deliver for our customers. Ultimately, returning to process leadership is central to product leadership, and we will remain focused on that mission while driving greater efficiency and improved profitability." Yuri concluded, "With Dave and MJ's leadership, we will continue to act with urgency on our priorities, simplifying and strengthening our product portfolio and advancing our manufacturing and foundry capabilities while optimizing our operating expenses and capital. We are working to create a leaner, simpler, more agile Intel." Gelsinger said, "Leading Intel has been the honor of my lifetime. This group of people is among the best and brightest in the business, and I'm honored to call each and every one a colleague. Today is, of course, bittersweet, as this company has been my life for the bulk of my working career. I can look back with pride at all we have accomplished together. It has been a challenging year for all of us, as we have made tough but necessary decisions to position Intel for the current market dynamics. I'm forever grateful for the many colleagues around the world who I've worked with as part of the Intel family. Throughout Gelsinger's tenure at Intel across a variety of roles, he has driven significant innovation and advanced not only the business, but the broader global technology industry. A highly respected leader and skilled technologist, he has played an instrumental role in focusing on innovation, while also creating a sense of urgency throughout the organization." Gelsinger began his career in 1979 at Intel, growing at the company to eventually become its first chief technology officer. Zinsner and Holthaus together said, "We are grateful for Pat's commitment to Intel over these many years, as well as his leadership. We will redouble our commitment to Intel products and meeting customer needs. With our product and process leadership progressing, we will be focused on driving returns on foundry investments." Zinsner has more than 25 years of financial and operational experience in semiconductors, manufacturing, and the technology industry. He joined Intel in January 22 from Micron, where he was Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer there. Zinsner served in a variety of other leadership roles earlier in his career, including President and COO at Firm Networks and SVP of Finance and CFO at Analog Devices. Holthaus is a proven general manager and leader who began her career with Intel nearly 3 decades ago. Prior to being named CEO of Intel Products, she was Executive Vice President and General Manager of CCG. That's the Client Computing Group. Holthaus has held a variety of management and leadership roles in Intel, including Chief Revenue Officer and General Manager of the Sales and Marketing Group and lead of global CCG sales. And then forward-looking statements. As I said, this came through at 8:30 in the morning. There's a lot to talk about in this, and I don't really have any order on how to address these issues because I know that there's a lot of questions that are coming up. Dom, if you want to keep track of the questions as they come in and keep the interesting ones and shove them in the Discord, that'd be great. The first one I think we should address is, this is immediate. This is effective yesterday. This is effective right now. And usually when an announcement like that happens, it's for one of 3 reasons. Either health, and I think Pat Gelsinger's in his mid-60s, so health is very much a thing, and some CEOs do just say health, whatever. Um, if it is, that's a shame. If he's being diagnosed with something, we have no information. Say who, what, where, or the other. Number two could be family. Do know executives who have had to quit, immediately to go effectively deal with a family member, a loved one, close loved one, partner, spouse, parent, sibling who has had sudden news, and rather than spend 80 hours a week doing a CEO job, want to spend 80 hours a week being there for their loved one, come hell or high water. That's usually one of the other reasons why people quit immediately. And I hope it's not that either. The third reason, and this comes in because he's also stepped down from the board of directors, is that he's been forced out. That it's effectively a firing rather than a retirement. I'm not here to play conjecture games. We know that Hock Tan resigned from the board back in September. He's the CEO of Walden International, one of the big investment firms. So whether this was a case of the board didn't like the direction Pat was going and made this decision without him, or this was part of the leadership direction, the fact that he's no longer on the board of directors has pointed people in that direction. Intel hasn't said anything other than the statement we've got here, and I'm saying that as an analyst. Sometimes we get a heads up with when big news is about to drop. I haven't been in contact with my analyst relations people yet to talk about what they do know, what they don't know, what we can talk about, what we can't talk about. Nobody at Intel's contacted me about this. This is just raw conjecture. None of these are facts really, aside from say Hock Tan going from the board. It's a few people might point out to just the retirement policy of Intel, because there was little bit of beef between Intel and TSMC over the last few years. Basically, Morris Chang, who's in his 80s, laughed and said Gelsinger will be hit the Intel retirement age of 65, 68 or whatever, whereas at TSMC they can work until whenever they want, apparently. I was told by Intel many moons ago that that doesn't apply here. Intel has changed the policy for senior executives that they can work well into retirement age, and it's not emeritus. For example, we know at Synopsys, Art de Gois, who ran a company for 28 years, he's essentially become executive emeritus. He's no longer the CEO, but he's still part of the company. They just don't pay him. He has plenty of stock. Interesting to see if any of Gelsinger, what was happening to Gelsinger's stock. So there are potential reasons for leaving. There has been a question of maybe has this been mandated from the US government? Because there was some news, if I can find the news. Yeah, so Intel was they were awarded a bunch of money from the CHIPS Act, and that's been slightly reduced down to 7.86 million under the CHIPS Act. They have another 3 billion on top for the Secure Enclave program with the government. Plus, they have a 25% tax credit on another, few tens of billions. One of the things that came out of this is essentially, in order to get this money, they have to agree to a certain period of time where they can't sell Foundry. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, they can't sell Foundry right now, and the short answer to that is all their 14, 10, and 7 fabs don't use industry standard software tools for chip design. They use Intel custom internal tools for chip design. And as a result, those fabs can only build Intel chips using Intel software. There's currently an agreement with UMC to build a industry standard software PDK called Intel 12 and UMC 12 using that Foundry capacity. However, until that comes to life and external customers are using those fabs, then those fabs ultimately have no value because the only company that can use them is Intel products. So there has been some speculation, and again, I'll reiterate, this is speculation, that part of this agreement may have involved some executive changes at the top end, or um, maybe Pat just simply didn't get enough money from the government to what the board wanted. Who knows? Again, I'm just pinpointing some conjecture here. Let's see if we can go to, okay, so market right now is up a few percent. Let's see if I can get that on a share this tab instead. Yeah, so in terms of share price and market, they're responding slightly positively to this news, given what's happening. Again, I didn't expect this. I thought Pat was definitely going to be in it for long term, because one of the questions I've been asked so many times is, if Pat were to leave, what would happen to Intel? Would Intel still have a rudder? Will it still end up in a similar direction? And I think it comes down to some of what come in the press release. Let's go back to the press release again. So Intel, for those of you who haven't followed Intel closely recently, the company has essentially been divided into two main business units plus a few small others. The small others being Mobileye and Altera. They're essentially now subsidiaries of Intel. So it's Altera, owned by Intel, Mobileye owned by Intel. Where the goal there with those companies is to partial IPO, so that Intel still retains majority ownership, but there is some outside investment. And those subsidiaries, while beholden to the parent company, don't have to rely on the parent company for anything. Basically, their job is to just go make money. However, big company essentially now has two big business units, Foundry and Product. And as a result, Foundry has a CEO, and now Products has a CEO, and that's MJ Hothouse, who's part of this announcement. And if you've been following Intel product family, they said in the last financial call, or in the last few, that about 30% of the wafers are currently made at TSMC, and the goal by the end of the decade is to move that 30% down to 20% and bring a lot more manufacturing in-house. They need a competitive process, and that's why Intel Foundry, now being its own subsidiary or its own main business unit, means that they can go after both Intel business and external business, whereas Intel products are kind of free to use any process they like. However, the benefit is if they use the Intel Foundry business. And the statement here from Frank is, as a board, we know first and foremost we must put our product group together at the center of all we do. Our customers demand this, and we deliver from them. This comes back to a conversation I've had a lot with investors over the years. I mean, literally over a decade at this point. Is Intel a products company that has a manufacturing process, or are they a manufacturing process that have a products? I wonder if we can put that into a poll. Let's start a poll. What is Intel? Product company with fabs or fab company with products? Let's start a poll in the YouTube chat. I want to see what people think regarding to that, because how you think about it determines who the major competitors are. And I can see right clearly that the initial spread says about 80% a company with fabs. Real men have fabs and all that. So the point is that they've spent the last 2, 3, 4 years under Pat focusing specifically on, or at least externally, their messaging focus has been on Foundry and regaining the process advantage. And there had been some unconfirmed reports about cancellation of potential products and microarchitectures, or people moving out of those teams. This is more of a statement towards, we know we need to have world-class products. We need, the high margins plus the high market share. The thing is, and I'll say this because one of my tweets on Twitter and got this response basically saying, well, Pat, Pat oversaw 3 bad product launches. And to which I say, those products were designed well before Pat came in. We have to remember that designing a product takes a good 3 years. Okay, you may finalize it in silicon a year and a half before, or if you're lucky, you have a respin a year to 9 months before, but then you still have to go through the validation and everything like that. So Pat's focus hasn't seems to be more on the foundry side, the whole build out in Ohio and Germany, New Mexico, Arizona, and also Oregon. But then on the product side, also the move to chiplets. In the last financial call, Gelsinger said words to the effect of, Xeon right now is actually a little bit complicated, and we need to simplify the fact that there's essentially 4 different Xeon designs, P&E 6700 and 6900, mix and match whoever you want. But then also on the consumer side, we've just had Lunar Lake and Arrow Lake launch, and they haven't been without their own issues. A slightly bigger question is whether those issues actually matter to the bottom line. I know it's all very well a K SKU or having issues or needing a fix that takes a couple of months, and a bunch of enthusiasts need to replace silicon. But for the non-Ks, the stuff that they sell to Dell and HP and the big OEM, if there's no problems with that, then ultimately it doesn't really affect their bottom line from a financial perspective. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to talk about. I do want to address another thing that's going to come up. Who the hell are these people that are taking over as interim co-CEO? So they're temporary shared. And it's Dave Zisner and MJ Holthouse. And I'll go through each of them because I've spoken to them on many occasions. So let's start with David Zisner, who people have rightly pointed out he is the chief financial officer, the CFO. And having a CFO at the head of a technology company isn't typically a good thing. People will often point to the Bob Swan years of Intel, which is the pre-Pat. But also, other instances that CFOs don't know how to manage a technology company. So I will say that that's probably true. However, there's a reason why they're doing co-CEOs. And to the benefit of David, to the benefit of Dave, in all the calls I've had with him, either one-on-one or one-on-many, especially the post-financial analyst calls, he is so extremely open and honest about the weird and wacky questions, especially for those of us who have, a brief understanding of how to read a financial report and perhaps not so much the details. He actually does spend time talking through what's working, what's not, how stuff works. And we'll go into things like, what about China, what about South America, what about the ramp for this product line, that product line, and he's always very open in those conversations. And it's refreshing to hear a CFO essentially providing this information, and not from a posturing standpoint that you might feel that these CFOs may do, or from a withholding aspect that I know some of them do as well. So I'm quite happy that Dave's in the loop, because also Dave's gone through this whole since Pat joined. I think Dave joined almost 9 months, 12 months later. Dave's been there since all the issues with Foundry, and trying to. Excuse me, I'm getting a phone call. Yeah, that's George. He just woke up. Yeah, so that's he's been there since all the money in order for all these Foundry developments has gone out. He's there trying to find all these billions of dollars of savings that have been in the financials for a while. And he's open to questions from the non-financial analyst part of the analyst group. And I think that's quite good. MJ Holthouse, MJ's fun. MJ's fun to be around. You can tell she takes pride in her job, and she doesn't take any bull. She's had a number of roles inside Intel, and as they said, she's essentially a lifer. She's been there 29, 30 years. And that's gone from sales to revenue, to leading CCG. Does she have a tech background? This is where I, do the standard LinkedIn search. MJ has always been easily able to answer technical questions in the group. Let's see. Okay, she did finance and financial management services, but she's been GM of desktop products, reseller products, marketing and comms. One of these people that has done a whole tour of Intel. And people say, where's the engineer in this? Where's the engineer in this? It's there are times inside a company where maybe you don't need a technology person. I want to say this isn't one of them. However, MJ's always been up on what products are where, in what band, and if there have been any issues. And she always knows the people who to contact internally, her and her team, about what's going on. This is an interim, right? We have to emphasize that these are not the permanent CEOs. There is another question of who, because who knows of who it would be, given Intel's current financial position, given their product position, given their financial position, given their build-out position, who can take that role. It's going to be quite a busy role. And just to put it into perspective, last time Intel did a CEO search was what, two and a half years before Pat came on board, so 6.5 years ago. Brian Krzanich was fired for a variety of reasons, and they went on a CEO search. Now, during that time, I understand Pat was offered the position, but essentially said, here's what I want to do with the company. I'll only take the position if I can do this. He essentially had a plan in place. And he was what, at Dell EMC or EMC before. So he'd spent 20, 25 years since the age of 18 at Intel. He was one of these students who went to university early as well. Spent 20, 25 years at Intel. Was a CTO, looked after all the way through Itanium as well. He got passed over for the CEO roles, as we understand it. So he left, went and did software for 12 years, and then came back to Intel. Thing is, because the board, the first time around after BK left, didn't like Pat's plan or thought it was too aggressive, they ended up keeping Bob Swan as the interim CEO and gave him the full role. Then a couple of years later, they essentially reached out to Pat and said, okay, we'll do it your way. And that's how he took the job. And the idea, I believe, was for Pat to see that out. The whole 5 nodes, 4 years, IDM 2.0 was kind of already in motion at that point. However, he essentially turbocharged it. And I remember when he first got the job, a lot of people inside Intel were like, yes, it's time to bring Intel back to leadership. It's been widely reported that on a foundry standpoint, Intel went from about 3 years ahead to 3 years behind. And the whole point with 18A is that 18A is that crossover where they reach performance leadership again. I did an article on more-more.com. If somebody can put that, no, Sally said it was Litbutan, not Hoktan. Yep. Get my tans mixed up. If anybody can put the more-more link in the chat for Intel's financials, where they go over, the status of 18A and the fact that Pat back in August said 0.4 defects per square centimeter, which is a D0, which is not the parametric yield. Actually, I'll bring it up here because this is still a video I want to do. If anybody hasn't seen my Substack, here it is. This is where I do some of my more written work. Intel now at 4%. And I want to come down here. You can see all these pretty graphs. I said that I did this in the last podcast we did, but I want to go over it again. If you work out that 0.4 defect rate, your yield of a smartphone chip is about 67.9%. But if you do reticle sized AI chips, it's about 8.25 because the size of a chip scales with the yield. So the whole point of 18A being progressing on that, and all sounds that we're getting from Intel basically says it's going to be a good process. The point is, a product is not only the process, you also need the product side on it. So there's a lot going on. So yeah, and we do fun graphs like this, and this is what happens at the financials last time. So yeah, 24.85, and Intel right now is 24.67. So we haven't changed since the financials day. We're in a set of interesting times. I think a couple of comments on Twitter has pointed me towards maybe Gelsinger didn't want to be part of an Intel on top of the Trump administration because their values didn't align. That's potentially possible. It's not the leading thoughts out there currently being discussed. This is something that's going to be going on all week and all next week through all the events and meetings that I'm going to end up having. But yeah, Intel will likely find a new CEO. Again, I did another poll on a live stream, and most people said that it probably should take 1 to 3 months, and at the most 6 months. If it goes beyond 6 months, there are very few votes for going beyond 6 months. Again, that live stream will be linked in the description, and I'll put a link in the comments if you want to watch the whole thing. It covers what you've seen in this video and a bit more, and a bit of discussion with George from Chips and Cheese and his initial thoughts on this, given that he only had 3 hours sleep. But yeah, more news to come as and when we hear it. I'm going to go reach out to more of my Intel contacts to see what exactly is going on internally and what's happening. And if I can tell you about it, you'll hear about it here.